name is Jessie Ace. I'm part of a group of enabled warriors that you've probably never heard of. We're fighting back against our invisible illness and taking the dis out of disability. We don't give sympathy to our symptoms. They enable us to be the warrior that we are. If you ask doctors and nurses, they'd say what we're doing is impossible. But pushing the limits of our conditions is something that we have to break through every single day. See, we push the limits. We are mentally strong, and we can do anything. The question is, how far can we push those limits? This podcast will give you the answers. I'm Jessie Ace, and this is the Disabled to Enabled podcast. Enabled Warriors on our show today is the most humble, beautiful soul I have ever met. And I'm sure she'll love me for saying that. She's the only person with multiple sclerosis to run a marathon on every continent. Phenomenal. Her neural pathways may have made it harder, but in total, my guest today has completed 56 half marathons. That's 39 with MS, and 67 full marathons. That's 53 marathons with MS. That's crazy. Her mantra is, I do what I can and never give up, which is so inspirational, which she created when her former neurologist told her to lower her expectations when she asked him about running. It is her mission to get someone from every state and from every country running a race at the same time as part of Run a Mile in My Shoes. So far, she has done a fabulous job at getting people involved. The last race in Richmond that she did in November this year, she managed to get 287 participants from 44 states and from 14 countries from all 7 continents. That's phenomenal. Fun fact, actually, that Cheryl was the lady behind most of the early guests on this podcast, and she actually inspired me to start running as well after my neurologist told me not to bother with exercise. Common thing. Enabled Warriors, please help me in welcoming my wonderful friend, Cheryl Hile. Woo! Hey!
Hi, Jessie. Thank you so much for having me. Such an honor.
How are you doing today?
I'm doing well. I'm just so happy to see your lovely face, and to be on this fabulous podcast. So it's definitely my honor.
You are so sweet. So let's get straight in by talking about the fact that you were a really avid runner prior to your MS diagnosis. How did you initially feel when you were first diagnosed in terms of, oh my God, does this mean I can continue running or not?
Exactly. So I was very scared when I was diagnosed because, as you said, I was an avid runner. I already had completed 13 marathons, and I did have a coworker with MS at the time that I was diagnosed, and she was actually in a scooter. And so, naturally I was afraid that would be my future, that eventually I would be in a wheelchair using a cane or a walker. But our supervisor, she told me, she said, Cheryl, you're a very active person and you should keep on pushing and trying to do what you can, because my other coworker pretty much, right when she was diagnosed, the next day she was in a scooter, and she was also an active person, but was just too afraid to try anything because, she just didn't want to, have any exacerbations. And so she decided, okay, I'm just going to start resting and not using my limbs or my legs or anything. So I kind of took the opposite approach and kept on running.
Yeah, and took on running to the extreme as well. You've done so many marathons. I can't get over how many you've done.
A little bit. And, part of it, I was afraid because I didn't know what was going to happen to me. So I just started registering for a lot of marathons, and it just kept going, and years passed. And
just amazing. Yeah. And it was great as well because I actually initially took the information from your website, and then you messaged me and you're like, actually, I haven't updated that. It's actually this many more. And I was like, oh my God.
Sorry, it changes every month. So
you just do so many. It's amazing. Can you tell us a little bit more about your actual diagnosis? Like, what were your initial symptoms that indicated that something was wrong? Because I read on your website that doctors thought it was something to do with weightlifting originally.
Yeah, exactly. So my very The first symptom that actually led to the diagnosis happened the day after I ran a marathon, and it's interesting. I think maybe the stress of it all just kind of perpetuated a new symptom, but the symptom that I was experiencing were electric shocks in my right bicep.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I mean, they were just so painful, so strong, and very annoying. And they would always start at night, when you're trying to fall asleep, all of a sudden these zaps. I went to my primary care physician, and he thought, well, you probably just pinched a nerve while weightlifting, or maybe it was just overuse by, running. And so he wrapped me up in an ACE bandage, and he told me to come back in 2 weeks.
Wow,
And
like I can imagine that didn't do very much.
no, that didn't do much. And in actuality, having that compression on my arm even made it worse and gave more odd sensations like extreme itchiness. And when I went back 2 weeks later, he said that I'm probably just taking a little bit longer than normal to heal. So he wrote a prescription for nerve numbing medication. And I was actually fine with taking the medication because it made me drowsy and I could finally fall asleep. But as months passed, my pain got worse, electric shocks were getting stronger. And finally, I got an MRI, and it was at 10 months. It was a 10-month process until I was finally diagnosed with MS.
Gosh, 10 months. That's a long time.
Yeah.
Wow. That's crazy. And I can imagine, do your symptoms get exacerbated by heat at all?
Oh, yes, absolutely. I'm much more lethargic. The MS fatigue, it's much, much worse in the heat. My leg tends to drag more. I had 4 exacerbations in 1 year, and each time my right leg just got heavier and heavier to lift. And now when it's hotter, it's just my leg drags. I have more numbness, and I still live with a lot of pain. Those electric shocks not only are they in my bicep, but they're down my back. And sometimes those shocks can run from my back down to my right leg. So definitely heat is not very good for me. And like most people with MS. On the other side too, the extreme cold is a little bit difficult for me too. I get more spastic, more stiff. I'm not as mobile. So I don't know. It's kind of like, I need the perfect weather. Not too
Really,
hot.
I'm exactly the same. Like I feel like sometimes I'm the hardest person to please, just because I'm like, too hot now. Now I'm too cold. Now I'm too hot again, and it's like people around me are just like, seriously, what are you up to? What are you about? Oh, they don't get it. It's funny. It's funny. I was just thinking with them, if they told you to put a cuff like on your arm or something, that's going to generate heat, and that's going to probably make it worse as well. That's what I was thinking.
That's true. And just even having something that's so compressive, that just somehow gives me more odd sensations. I don't know if that's common with other people, like one sensation causing another sensation.
I don't know. Maybe. Maybe. So you said that you had a co-worker with MS. Now, did you actually know what MS was at that time before your diagnosis? Were you given like any information about it when you were first diagnosed as well, or not?
No. So learning from my coworker, I didn't even know that it was a central nervous system disease. I just kind of thought maybe it was like muscular dystrophy. I mean, I didn't really know anything about it. I didn't know that I didn't know that you were being attacked through the myelin. So I didn't know anything about it. And even the very first general neurologist that I saw, despite my MRI saying that I had numerable lesions in my brain and 2 in my cervical spine, he said, I'm not ready to diagnose you with MS yet. I need more clinical evidence, which, okay, I'm living with so much pain on the right side of my body. So I was referred to an MS specialist, and she said, "Oh yeah, definitely it's MS." And like practically the next day, I started on therapy. So yeah, and it was really pretty much the reading online and the MS Society that mainly educated me about the disease.
Yeah, 'cause I think it's crazy that information isn't given out that much in hospitals and things when you're actually diagnosed. Because like I was told to literally go and Google it and find out for myself, and obviously like I found every negative thing going.
Oh, I
It
know.
really didn't help, to be honest.
And no, and especially I was diagnosed in 2006, and I don't think people were really exercising with MS back then. I think that there was that shift that, okay, exercise is good, but not extreme exercise like running marathons. And everything that I read online was just so negative. And my husband, Brian, would find me at like 3 o'clock in the morning, just crying in front of my laptop because I thought I was going to get every single horrible symptom of MS. And so I was in despair. I was depressed. Yeah.
Yeah, I think we kind of all are when that happens. I mean, everybody knows you should not Google symptoms of anything.
I know, right?
You always bring up something you really don't want to see. But yeah, I think there needs to be more done in actual hospitals to give out the information.
Right.
For sure, yeah. So what was it like for you running again after you first found out that you had MS? I mean, did you find that you have to do things differently to be able to do it and things like that?
So definitely, I actually started running more because I was just so depressed, and my husband Brian encouraged me to just exercise 30 minutes a day. And I soon found that it really helped elevate my spirits, and it made me feel better about myself. But I started tripping and falling while running. And I didn't know that it was a symptom of MS. So for a whole year, I thought maybe I'm just overtraining because I'm running so much, because I'm so depressed, and maybe it's a running injury. I didn't know until I Googled it, and I realized that it was a symptom of MS called drop foot. And I went to my neurologist, and I told her I'm tripping and falling while running, and that's when she told me that I need to lower my expectations.
Oh,
Yeah, I know.
no.
No, I know. Not no, like, well, maybe, try swimming or try some other form of exercise, yoga. She just said lower your expectations, and my jaw dropped. My husband was floored. But as the days passed, I became more and more determined to prove her wrong. And that's when I said, I'm going to do what I can and never give up. And I went out on my own, and I got an ankle foot orthotic, which I have right here.
Oh,
an
awesome.
example of one. And this is what it looks like. And it actually inserts into my shoe, and it elevates my toes at a 6-degree angle. I worked a lot with an ankle foot orthot, with an orthotist, to know that for my particular drop foot, I need a 60-degree angle. And so when I run, I push off strongly on my left, and then my foot just rolls along on the right side, and I don't trip and fall anymore.
That's fabulous.
So yeah, and it's just been such a I would not be able to run at all, not even 1 kilometer without this ankle foot orthotic. So it's been a real game changer for me. And even technology, I started running with an ankle foot orthotic, or an AFO, in 2008. And my very first one had these hinges on the side, and every step was a squeak, and so it was kind of embarrassing. Running a race, and then people would be trying to run away from you because of these little squeaks. But I know, whatever, I still did it. I was still happy. And then just as time wore on, the evolution of going from plastic to carbon fiber, and to special, even. So this one that I'm currently wearing is by Tuan. They won't tell me what all the materials are. I mean, it's not like I'm going to go
Top
to
secret.
the lab and but there's like 5 secret ingredients in this AFO. So, but yeah, it's just so flexible, and it helps, spring my leg forward, because as I said, I have those 4 exacerbations, and my right leg can only lift just a few inches off the ground. So it really helps to have an AFO to not only trip, but to spring forward.
That's amazing. And what I really love is that you had a passion to start off with. You got this illness, which was just like the worst thing ever, basically.
Yeah.
This degenerative illness. And then you kind of said to it, no, I'm not going to let it stop me. Stuff
No.
that. I'm not interested in that. I'm going to do it anyway, but I'm just going to find a way that I can do it. And that is the very definition of being enabled.
Yes.
So that's and if you watch it on YouTube, by the way, you can actually see Cheryl's AFO. It's
yes.
Yeah, you can go and check that out. That is cool.
Yeah.
So speaking of marathons and running and things, I have a very important question for you now. So you've run 56 half marathons and 67 full marathons in total. So which was your favorite and which was just dire awful?
Okay, that's a hard question. So I think, I'm going to name 2 favorites, if I may.
Okay.
My very first marathon in Toronto, that has to be my favorite marathon, because it was my first, and it was where I actually fell in love with marathons. I mean, by like mile 16, I realized this is so much fun. I love running marathons. And I mean, before I even crossed the finish line, I was already thinking, what am I going to do next? Which marathon am I going to do next? So that's one of my very first favorite, because it was my first marathon. And I would have to say my second favorite marathon was Boston. And not because it's so prestigious or that it's such a famous race, but it was my first marathon with an ankle foot orthotic.
Oh, okay.
And and at that race, I knew that I'm back in the game, and I could actually run with my head looking forward, not down on the ground, worried about tripping and falling. So that was a really big turning point, and knowing that I can still do this. I was super slow, and I'm super slow still, but I can do it. And I'm just thrilled that I still have the health to do so.
That's awesome. And which ones were like really awful? Which would you never do again?
Okay. So dire awful, I would have to say, was part of my 7 marathons on 7 continents. And that was Christchurch, New Zealand. And it's not because it was, a boring place to be. It wasn't at all. But 6 days prior to the marathon, we had perfect weather. And on marathon morning, an hour before it started, there was just torrential rain, and it didn't stop at all. It was, and the southerlies, and down there in the southern hemisphere, the southerlies means the cold wind from Antarctica. And it was just pouring rain. It was freezing cold. There was just such strong wind. It took us like 5 hours and 10-15 minutes. And it didn't stop raining until 5 minutes before we crossed the finish line. So we were soaking wet. It was so miserable and cold. I was hating life, and it was my birthday. It was the one marathon where I actually got to run on my birthday, and it was so cold and rainy. But in retrospect, it's something that we can laugh about and say, we did it, we're stronger, we can do anything now.
You can, like, compared to anything with Team Easier, surely. Oh gosh. So how do you battle like running in extreme heat or running in extreme cold? I mean, like, that must really affect your body.
Yeah, I've had marathons where it was just too hot, and rather than, stopping or giving up, I just, I ran one marathon in Florida where I was already done at like mile 6 to mile 10, and the last 8 miles, we just walked it in. I just, every time that there was a water stop, I would make sure to get in a lot of water. They knew that it was a hot day, so there was ice, there were icy pops. So I just took my time and dragged my right leg to the finish line. And one thing, I have my husband who runs all of my marathons with me now because they are much harder for me. So he's there to encourage me. I can't, because of the right side weakness, I can't necessarily hold a water bottle or even open it. So he's there by my side. And also I had mentioned that when I run with my AFO, I push strongly on my left side, and then my right side kind of follows along. So because of that, I kind of run crooked. I tend to drift to my right side. So my husband, Brian, runs on my right side the whole time, and it gives me kind of a reference point. So I can keep running in a straight line. So so having the support, having Brian there with me kind of keeps my spirits up and helps push me along, even if the weather is so hot or so cold. I can fare better when it's cold. At least my leg doesn't drag. I do have a lot of MS pain, but that I can try to block out. But it really is the heat that's the worst. So now I try not to register for hot races or hot marathons.
Yeah, I mean, do they, if you were going to do a marathon when it was kind of middle of summer or something, do they schedule them at like really early in the morning, or is it midday? Yeah,
They do. Like the one in Florida, that one was in February, but they still scheduled it before sunrise. But I mean, still with the humidity, it was still very difficult. Part of my 7 marathons was Honolulu, which was kind of an experiment to see if I could do it, and then the next month run in Antarctica just to see. Maybe it's kind of a weird sick experiment. But Honolulu took us almost 6 hours. Antarctica, it wasn't even that cold. It was about 0 degrees Celsius, which is that's fine to run in. It wasn't windy or anything, but it took us almost 8 hours because the terrain was just so treacherous. It was pebbles, rocks, and boulders, and there were parts where we had to run over boulders. And I mean, at that point, you're not running; you're just trying to walk over it and not tip and fall. So yeah, lots of interesting
so hot.
experience.
Yeah, it's wow, it's just crazy. So can you tell us how it felt to have so many people joining you in the races with the Run a Mile in My Shoes?
Yeah. Oh, it's oh my gosh, it's so incredible. I came up with the idea around 2017, just as I was finishing up my 7 marathons on 7 continents, because I'm such a goal-oriented person that I always need something to look forward to. So I started thinking, what am I going to do next? And I came up with the idea to form a group of people with MS to run together, because throughout that whole adventure, I met so many people with MS who are runners or who wanted to become runners. And so I thought, okay, this will be the perfect project. And so I sent email out December of 2017 to maybe 20 people. And I thought maybe 1 or 2 would join me for Detroit the following year. But soon 10 people said, yeah, I'm all for it. And they started sharing with their friends. I started reaching out more. I asked MS Society for help. I started posting on other people's blogs and Facebook pages. And soon it became 20, 30, 40 people. And then our first sponsor Hanger Clinic, they said, okay, Cheryl, why don't you get somebody on every continent, like at least a virtual runner, like the way you were for Richmond this year. And within like a couple of weeks, I already had teammates on every continent, including Antarctica. She's a researcher down there, and she was, yeah, I'm all for it. Let's do this. Let's spread awareness of MS. And that first year, I had 96 teammates. 55 of us were in Detroit, and the other were virtual participants. And then we tripled the next year in Richmond, which was just so amazing because more people came out of the woodwork saying, oh, I have MS, I'm a runner, and my doctor told me not to run, but I want to run with you.
I'm going to go and run anyway.
I'm going to do it anyway. So, I mean, and so just like you know, people were inspired to just try it. And I mean, it doesn't have to be a marathon. You know, Richmond, we had an 8K, a half marathon, and a full marathon, and then people around the world, they did 5K walks, 5K runs, all the way up to marathons. So it just, I mean, oh, and even one teammate, she did a one mile walk in Richmond. So
Amazing.
she registered for the 8K, but she walked 1 mile with her cane and a guide. And that's because that's what she can do. And we're just, it's incredible that, you know, we've touched so many people, and we've inspired a lot of people too. Yeah.
Totally.
So it's just awesome. Yeah.
Totally. And you were my initial inspiration, because I came across I can't quite remember how I first saw you online, I'll be honest. I think it was when I think it was actually when I posted something on Instagram and you replied saying, oh, you should join the Run a Mile in My Shoes gang. And I was like, what's this? And then I started to research it more and go into it, and I was like, wait a second, this is possible. Like, you actually showed me it's possible, because like my neurologist told me not to exercise, and there was all this like negativity that I found online where it was just like, oh, don't exercise because you've got MS and blah 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 blah. So I was just like, oh, okay. And then when I came across your stuff and what you were doing, and then I just felt so like, inspired to go and do it myself, because I was like, well, what am I waiting for? Like, why can't I go and run marathons? Like, this is insane. I need to get training. So yeah, you started my journey as well, and it was amazing. And the fact that you had people from all around the world was just phenomenal. I mean, I remember seeing, I think it was on your Insta story or someone else's, I'm not quite sure, but there was people on that they ran in a really cold country. Well, I can't remember which it was, but they were all like lined up running on treadmills together, and it was just phenomenal.
Oh yeah, that was Antarctica.
Yeah, that's the one. Yes.
Yeah. So it was just, they wanted to run outside for us, but they couldn't, as the wind was just so strong. So they lined up on the treadmills, and they each ran, I think, 5 miles. There were 5 of them to make up a full marathon among the 5 of them. And then they went outside really quickly. They showed their team shirts, took a picture, and then ran back inside. So yeah,
I don't blame them. It's cold. So yeah. Yeah, and that's the other thing as well, is the team shirt that you sent us, because I felt so proud running in that shirt. And like, whenever I was running and I slowed down and I was walking, I remembered that I had the shirt on, and I was like, wait a second, I'm doing this like a really bad kind of I'm like doing this what's the word, doing the charity injustice by walking and not running. So I was like, right, keep running. So I literally hardly ran at all, hardly walked at all. And like, I don't even know how I finished in the time that I did, because I'd never ran a 10K, and it was just, I think, because of that shirt that just really kept me going. So thank you for that.
Adrenaline too, and just
adrenaline too. Yeah.
For a lot of people who can't run, and so we're trying to do them proud by pushing forward.
Yeah. It was brilliant. It really, really was. So I'm so excited to get in touch to do another one.
Yes, absolutely. 2020, we're already planning.
You're already planning it. That's amazing.
Oh my God, I'm just so inspired by everybody, and I just it motivates me to do a good job and help everybody. So.
Yeah, it's great. I mean, the thing that I did find with running, and I was posting like pictures on Instagram and Facebook and stuff, is the fact that my family and friends didn't really understand how I could go running one day but then not go out with them the next day. And things like that. And it's like, why can't you go out with us because you went running? Or why can't you just come and help me with this because you went running, you should be fine? Or like, well, you've been running, so you're obviously like haven't got anything wrong with you, you're perfectly healthy, kind of thing. Did you find that? I mean,
absolutely. Like, big places. Friends and family, you know, people, even there was a story about me in the MS Society magazine, and people were saying, oh, I don't want to hear these pie in the sky stories, or somebody even wrote on there was a post about me on some company's website or some company's Facebook page, and the person wrote, I hate your mantra.
Why?
Yeah, I know, real nice. But people just don't understand that, okay, I may look fine on the outside and I can still run marathons, but I do have MS and I still do struggle each and every single day. And fatigue definitely is a real issue for me. It may not seem like it because I can run long distance, but I've learned so much about my body that I know that when I get up in the morning, I take a huge cup of coffee, and that's when I do my run, because that's when I have the most energy. I used to run after work, and as time progressed, I started running during my lunch break, which some people thought was odd, but I did it because I had the energy. And then I started running before work, and now I strictly run early in the morning because that's when I have the most energy. But people don't understand that by 10 o'clock in the morning, sometimes 2 p.m., 4 p.m., I'm done. I'm just so tired. And just the thought of walking from one side of the room to the other just to go to the bathroom, it's effort. Like, really? Do I have to walk that far? So, people just don't understand. And, people in my own family, they'll say, oh, I'm tired too. And like, but it's not the same thing.
No, it's the worst line anybody can say, I think, is I'm tired too. And you're like, no, honey, you don't understand what tired is. Okay.
You don't get it. But, at the same time, the next day I can feel like lethargic right when I wake up in the morning. So fatigue is definitely a big deal, and also the cognitive issues that come with it. And I'm glad that you had time in your schedule for me to interview at 10 o'clock in the morning rather. It was 4 o'clock in the afternoon. So, with the time differences, so I'm really glad that we were able to get this going for early for me. But I had to leave my job that I loved. I had my job. I was a contracting grant administrator at a major university in California. And I had that position for 17 years. And I had the best coworkers, the most supportive coworkers. The professors were awesome. They wanted everything yesterday, but still I worked hard for them because I really loved my job. And but then with the MS, I had to back down to part-time because of the afternoon fatigue. And then as time wore on, I was even making mistakes during the mornings when I was there. And I remember doing a major project, a $10 million project with my coworker. And I tired him out because when I would leave for the day, because I was part-time, he would actually have to go back to my spreadsheets, make corrections, break some of my formulas because they didn't make sense or they weren't working, and that he would have to make corrections. And so I knew at that point, and he was covering for my mistakes. And I knew at that point, I spoke to my boss and we knew that I had to leave because I wasn't even performing at the half-time level. Yeah. So that was such a hard decision, and people don't understand. They think, oh, you're running a marathon. Of course you can do a $10 million budget. You can't. So, but I'm lucky to have a lot of help. So,
yeah. And thank goodness that Brian is there to support you in this, and support you in these marathons as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Was he a marathon runner beforehand, or were you kind of like, look, you need to step up and start? Just start running?
So he was actually a marathon runner well before me. He started running marathons in the 80s, and I didn't start running until 2000. We met in 1995. But I didn't feel like I wanted to run, even though he was running races. And the reason is, he likes to tell this story. She didn't want to run because she knew she wouldn't be able to win. And she just, maybe I'm a little competitive. I kind of thought, well, why am I bothering to, run these races when I know I'm not going to win? And he just said, honey, only one person wins. So, you might as well just go and enjoy. And that's when I decided, okay, I'll start running races. And as I said, Toronto, I thoroughly enjoyed it and loved that marathon, loved the long distance feeling. So it just
Yeah,
became part of it. Yeah.
that's awesome. So did you build up to a marathon, or did you kind of like,
Oh,
how
yeah.
did that
So,
process kind of begin?
so definitely, I I gave myself 6 months to train for the marathon. I had already done maybe, actually, Toronto Marathon was my very first race ever, but I was already running 2 to 3, 4, 5 miles. So I had a little bit of a base, but the real training started 6 months into it, and just slowly building. Each week, I would add maybe 10% more to my longest run, and I would go in 3-week cycles, so that I would maybe run 10, 12, 14-mile weeks, and then I would go drop down on the fourth week to maybe a 6-mile long run. So I never really trained crazily like some people where they do 20, 22 miles. I've always thought if you're going to run that long, you might as well just run a marathon and have the support of the crowd and the aid stations and get a medal at the end for it.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh gosh, you must have so many medals. Like, are they all on your wall, or are they like in a draw scenario?
Yeah,
What's the
they're
deal?
so at one point I had them on the wall, but then it just started buckling and sagging. So I have to find a new way to display them. So right now they're safely tucked away in the closet. But yeah, I definitely want to put them out. I need a creative idea to to figure that out.
Oh, okay, that sounds like a Pinterest job to me.
Yes, oh, absolutely, for sure.
I love that. So, do you have any tips for others diagnosed with chronic illness that maybe want to start getting into running?
Yeah, definitely start small. It doesn't have to be a marathon. What I like to do is create an exercise schedule and try to follow that as closely as possible. I know it's hard when you have chronic illness that maybe you might have a 3-mile run one day, but you wake up and you can't do it. Then maybe just go and walk 1 mile, or parlay that workout until the next day until you actually feel good.
Mm.
And also have so that's one calendar that you have where you predetermine your exercise schedule, but also have a blank calendar so that you can write in those days where you actually do exercise. And then you'll start seeing, if you see blank spots throughout the week, you'll think, oh wait, I need to step up my game. I don't want to have too many blank spots on my calendar for the month.
Mm.
And then maybe you'll be a little bit more motivated. And I think that having apps and everything, it's great, but there's something about physically writing it in with your own hand and your own penmanship, and seeing that on the calendar in your own handwriting. I think that's another kind of motivator to help get you going. And it just
Absolutely.
puts a visual to the whole plan. So
Yeah.
that's what I like to do. Yeah.
That's really cool. And the way that I first got into it was with an app, and it was called Couch to 5K. I don't know if you've heard of
Yeah.
it.
Yes.
Yeah. So it's something that the BBC put together, I think. But basically, with that, you kind of choose your own mentor type person who would like be talking to you as you were trying to run, and it'd be like little
Yeah.
bursts. So it'd tell you to run for like 30 seconds, and then you walk for a minute, and then it would tell you to
Yeah.
run again. And it builds it up that way, and every week it kind of gets a little bit further and a little bit further and a little bit
Yeah.
longer, and that really helped. So that was kind of how I got to 5K, and then
Yeah, definitely. And also, when you talk about that run walking, that's something that I use nowadays too. I just because of my right leg being heavier now,
yeah.
it's harder to run a full 16 miles at a good even pace. So what I do is I'll run 1 mile and then I'll take a 1 minute walk break. And I mean, not like, I shouldn't say break, because I'm actually, you know, I have my arms up, I'm still pumping, I'm walking briskly, but it, for some reason, that just kind of gives that my leg a little bit of a rest, and then I can start running again and keep more of an even keel and even pace. And I've been doing that now for the past year and a half or so. And even before MS, I was using that method, and my fastest marathon was using that run walk method. And even Brian, I mean, he's qualified for Boston many times by doing run walk method. So it's not like you're giving up and now you're all of a sudden walking. I mean, it's still a very good plan, and that's another good way for people who are new, who want to start running, to incorporate those walk sessions during the run.
Yeah, that's awesome advice. Definitely. So before we go, we have a couple of questions from our Facebook group, which is very exciting. So let's get started with Victoria. And Victoria wanted to know, do you have any tips for getting the motivation or routine going? So her hardest part is the kind of stop-start approach that she has towards it. So I imagine she's a little bit like me. So she'll book in a race and then train for the race, and then the race will be over, and then that's kind of it for a little while, and then she'll book in.
So definitely, like I said, with the calendar, that's a big motivator, at least for me. And I was going to say, actually registering for the race, putting that money down,
Yes.
and knowing that you spent money, that you have to train for that race, but then extend it further. Even before that race has happened, maybe book another race for 2 months after that race. And one nice thing about that is all of the training that you did for that first race is also training for the next race.
Yeah.
And that's kind of like how I was able to do the 7 marathons in 1 year. I trained minimally for the first one, but then that first race was training for the next one, and then training for the next one. So I never had to start at ground zero. So that's one thing that she can try, is just have 1, maybe even 2 more races ahead of schedule. So you always have something to look forward to, and knowing that you don't have to start from ground zero again, that you can actually do better and improve, maybe run a little bit longer or run just a little bit faster.
That is great advice.
Yeah,
for sure. And as soon as you know, I think what the good thing that I found was, as soon as I completed a race, that was kind of a thing in my brain that kind of went, okay, you can do this now. So let's push it a little bit further next time. Let's do a little bit further next time, and that sort of thing. So you are working up to the next race at all times, which is really nice.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah. So Tim wants to know, how do you keep going? Because you do a lot of marathons.
I guess it's probably still that fear, maybe, that I just tend to keep going. Maybe part of it is old school, like if you don't use it, you'll lose it. So I tend to figure, well, maybe I need to just keep pushing and pushing, because I'm afraid to lose it. And I think, though, I should know by now, right, after all these marathons, that I probably won't lose it. But it's just, it's been ingrained in me for so long that I feel like that's just part of my lifestyle.
Yeah.
That I just going. And I do take years where I'll just run 2 or 3 marathons, and then I'll ramp up one for the next year. But it's been part of me for so long that it's just my lifestyle.
So it becomes a habit, doesn't it?
I don't have to worry about kids. It becomes a habit, and I feel weird if I don't exercise. And plus, I have my husband, Brian, he's there too. So it's just, it's a perfect match, because I have somebody at all times who can push me, and I can encourage him as well. So
yeah, that's really helpful. And you train together?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. We still, and I feel bad because he's such a fast runner. I mean, he's still an age division winner for 5Ks up to half marathons, because we don't run those together. But for the full marathons, he runs with me now. And I mean, he could be in the beer garden for an hour and a half, and I would still be out there running. But he's with me, and so he claims it's much more enjoyable because we can talk, we can enjoy scenery, we're together, but yeah, it's a good partnership. And
Yeah,
I
imagine.
yeah.
And I can imagine, because it must be amazing to have that person that's always there with you, supporting you every step of the way. Because I think going on your own, when you're trying to train on your own, it's so much harder.
It is hard, and running groups help a lot too.
Yes.
If you can find people, who are your same pace, and that's hard too, because I've tried running groups, and either I'm left in the dust and I don't know which way to turn, or some I feel like maybe it's just a little bit too slow. So that's also a hard balance. But if people can find a running group and then go for several weeks, and then hone in on one or two people who are actually your same pace, same level, then
Yeah, totally.
like often become your own running group. That helps too.
And they do say as well, if you can't find a group, make a group.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Exactly. I am seeing a lot more MS specific running groups coming up now as well. I don't know if that's because I started running and now Facebook just recommends them to me or what. But
Oh, I know,
yeah, I've
that's
just found so
true.
many.
Yeah, I have noticed that as well, that there are more groups, and even groups. There's one for people who wear ankle foot orthotics, um, AFO runners, and so there's a group for somebody,
Absolutely.
or if not, create one.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So our last question today is from Sarah, and she says, I'm struggling to get through a marathon without needing a loose stop now, which costs precious minutes in my quest to get GFA. And I'm hoping you all know what GFA means, because I'm not an experienced runner enough to know what that means.
I think is that guaranteed entry for fast runners.
Oh, maybe. So so what are your biggest barriers and how do you overcome them?
I'm still trying to figure out the potty stops because I mean, especially, oh geez, in Detroit, it was very cold in Detroit. It was about 0 degrees Celsius. And for some reason that just makes me want to go to the bathroom more. And
Yeah,
I stopped eight times during the
8
whole marathon.
times. Wow.
Yeah, and so um, my doctor did prescribe a medication to help me hold my pee for like about 4 hours. So, I mean, that could be something that Sarah talks to her doctor about, if there's some sort of pill that he can prescribe. I did take it. It still didn't help because just my bladder, it didn't respond. More warmer conditions, it does work, and I can hold for like 4 hours. But then again, it takes me longer than 4 hours to run, so I still have to go. But I also, I think my doctor, he said that I take so much caffeine in order to run, that's just another diuretic. And he was saying, if you can just find another way to get that energy going, I don't know, I think he mentioned Gatorade or other sugary drinks to get me that energy to run. I really depend on caffeine a lot. So I don't know if Sarah can find another more natural, another means for her energy source. That might help, not having to go to the bathroom. But I mean, otherwise, find the nearest bush. Don't wait in line for the porta potties. I mean, guys do it all the time. So, yeah.
That is the thing, isn't it? Women are at a significant disadvantage.
Yes. So, I mean, that's the best thing. See your doctor about maybe some sort of pill and find another way other than caffeine, not something that's not a diuretic. And also, too, they say hydrate really well for many days leading up to your marathon, because I feel like I don't drink enough because I have that bathroom problem. And then marathon morning, I'm drinking, afraid of being dehydrated. So maybe if I, was more even throughout the week about hydration, that might help me on race morning and not go to the bathroom. So,
Interesting. So it's basically a trial and error kind of thing.
it's hard. It really is hard. Yeah. I don't know what else to say about that one. That's a tough question.
Okay, not to worry. Are you ready for some super quick secrets?
Okay, sure.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Most people when they start this, they're kind of like, dreading it.
I think so.
Okay, enabled warriors, we've talked about some heavy stuff today. Let's have a little bit of fun before we go, shall we? This is the part of the show where we find out a little bit more about the personality of our guests with some super quick secrets. Are you ready for this, Cheryl?
I think so, yes.
Everybody always says that with dread. This is a fun one, guys. Come on.
Fun. Okay.
What is the most inspiring book that you have ever read?
I've read a couple of books by the Dalai Lama, and one of his quotes that I really find inspiring is, "My religion is simple. My religion is kindness." And that's just how I try to live my life each and every day, to be kind and encouraging to other people. So
That's amazing. And when are you writing your own book, by the way?
I know. But see, that whole cognitive issue thing, I can't keep my mind straight. So actually, Brian is trying to write about the Hour 7 marathon adventure and try to incorporate other, not because I don't want it to be about me, because that would just be really boring. I want him to talk about, the people that we met along the way, the other people with MS and how they cope. So hopefully something that's, more, that's broader than just one person.
Yeah, I love that. That's so lovely. So it's a really kind of community almost based book, and you share loads of people's stories in there as well.
That's and their experiences and how we experience MS differently and how we cope as well.
That's phenomenal. Like, you could absolutely write the handbook on how to do a marathon with MS. Like, okay, what is the weirdest thing that you've ever done?
Okay, I was more weird when I was growing up, but in high school, I was part of French club, and we had a bake sale. And instead of making something like chocolate chip cookies, I made escargot cookies. And
what cookies?
but escargot, little snails.
Wow. Cool.
But people like them. They actually, I mean, when you put enough sugar in something, it was just a little chewy.
Wow. Okay. It's just jelly beans. It's just jelly beans. Just by fire. Love it.
It's really black jelly beans. You'll love it.
I love that. That's the kind of thing that you'd see nowadays on like Lad Bible or something. That people are doing for a day. I love that. That's amazing. So what is your favourite place that you have ever visited? Now, I know you've visited quite a few.
But so definitely I would have to say Japan. Their culture is just, it's so different. And, okay, they still have Starbucks and Kentucky Fried Chicken, but it's so different. And the people are just lovely, and they're so helpful and just charming. And I was able to meet with the MS Society there, the Secretary General, and he showed us around, and it just such lovely people. And I hope someday I can go back again.
Oh, that's amazing. I am obsessed with Japan at the moment.
I
think the coolest thing I found about Japan so far is that for Christmas dinner, they actually go and pre-order KFC and have KFC for dinner.
I know. I read that too. Why? Why did they do? Don't they want something like? Yeah, that's just so funny. I mean, I would love a sushi dinner for Christmas.
But if you think that they have that all the time, every day anyway. So like something like KFC,
right,
completely different. So yeah,
that's true.
That blew my mind when I like realized that. I was like, oh wow, I'm moving to Japan. That's amazing.
That's different.
What is the scariest thing that you've ever done?
I think the scariest thing I've ever done was I held an alligator.
An alligator.
It was a baby alligator, which is, but the guy put it over my shoulder, so the mouth was back that way. So I thought, if it's gonna try to bite me, then I can just quickly just back away.
Oh.
I wasn't breathing for maybe 5 minutes as I was holding the alligator. Like, please, Brian, hurry, take your picture. I can't do this anymore.
Oh my God! Where was this?
Actually, it was, we used to live in Seattle, and they had just this animal fair. It was a little bit depressing because it was just in a convention center, and I felt really sorry for the animals. But it was, I wasn't very comfortable with it. But anyways, we got to, pet things like bunnies and llamas and hold alligators. So
That's kind of cruel, but kind of cool at the same time.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. So last question, where can other warriors find out more about you and what you do?
So my website right now, my blog is CherylHile.com. I haven't written in a while, just the whole cog fog thing. It's just been hard to write a story. It takes me forever to even write one paragraph. But with Run a Mile in My Shoes, we just bought the runamileinmyshoes.com and .org. So we'll get that up and running for our team, and hopefully post stories about our teammates like you and how you felt with running your first 10K and being part of the team. So really promote. I like you said, maybe I'm humble, but I don't like to have the stories all about me. I'd rather highlight my teammates and show what amazing people they are. And so I want to do that and try to get more sponsors for next year and help more people out with MS. So that's something in the works. And I know I need to be better on Instagram. So we do have Run a Mile in My Shoes Instagram. So I'll be better about posting pictures. So, yeah, and
incredible.
Otherwise, yeah.
Oh my God, you are too humble because you are absolutely amazing. So okay, I will link all of those in the show notes anyways, so they're all there. You can go and check them out. Enabled Warriors. Oh my goodness, it's been so good to speak to you again today. I have missed this. We need to catch up more.
Absolutely. This is so fast. An hour has passed. This is just
I know. Yeah. I know. It's because you're fantastic. That's why. So thank you so much for coming on the show today. It has been a delight to speak to you. I think we've all learned a lot about running and marathons and stuff. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Big hugs. Virtual hugs.
Virtual hugs around. And I'll see you again soon, Cheryl. And remember, warriors, stay enabled. If you want to fight back against your invisible illness and help take the dis out of disability, then join the tribe on Facebook, facebook.com/enabled warriors. If you love this podcast, click that subscribe button and never miss another episode. And remember, warriors, stay enabled.